This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us on this busy Friday. I'm Ephraim Graham. Let's begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Israel is pressing ahead in its war against Hezbollah as the Iranian proxy continues to launch scores of projectiles at northern Israel, and it's happening every day. Meanwhile, another Hamas commander heavily involved in the October 7th attacks, Israel has eliminated. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports now from Jerusalem.
Israel's top general believes the IDF can win its war against Hezbollah in Lebanon and bring Israelis home after being driven out by Hezbollah rocket attacks.
In the north, there is a possibility of achieving a decisive outcome. We have thoroughly dismantled Hezbollah's senior command structure.
Israel is keeping up its strikes in Beirut, where their jets blew up Hezbollah weapons manufacturing and storage sites. And ground troops found another extensive tunnel system loaded with weapons, which elite Hezbollah forces were expected to use to launch an October 7th style invasion of nearby Israeli locations. The IDF wiped out the tunnels and the structures above, which were also jammed with Hezbollah weapons. Israeli forces are displaying some of the 3,200 explosives and 2,500 anti-tank missiles and other deadly weapons they've captured from Hezbollah. The IDF's top military spokesman says all this shows why Israel had to defend itself by invading Lebanon and waging this war on Hezbollah, to protect itself from another massive terrorist attack like October 7th.
The amount of weapons we found confirms the importance of the ground activity of our forces to remove the threat to the northern settlements.
But the IDF suffered one of its worst days of losses in Lebanon, with 5 soldiers killed Thursday and quite a number wounded, seen here being evacuated to Israeli hospitals. In Gaza, the IDF says it's eliminated a Hamas commander who, on October 7th, led the attack on a bomb shelter that killed 16 Israelis, with 4 others captured, including Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg-Polin, who was later executed. The IDF said this Hamas terrorist, Mohammed Abu Itawi, was an employee of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which UNRWA itself has now confirmed.
Mohammed Abu Itawi commanded the attack on the bomb shelter in Reim, where young people fleeing the Nova Music Festival were taking cover.
Iranians are showing their deep links with Hezbollah, protesting the deaths of Hezbollah's top leaders from Israeli airstrikes and chanting death to Israel. The head of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard says the U.S. anti-missile defense system that America has recently placed in Israel won't be enough to protect the Jewish state. Major General Hussein Salami said if Israel starts attacking Iran, you cannot win this conflict. We will destroy you. Israel reportedly delayed a strike on Iran after a U.S. intelligence leak of Israel's attack plans, according to the Times newspaper in Britain. Actual targets weren't leaked, but those are likely to include missile launching sites, since they pose Iran's main threat to Israel.
And Chris Mitchell joins us right now from Jerusalem with more. Chris, are you surprised how quickly the war is going in southern Lebanon?
Ephraim, I think a lot of people are surprised how fast it's going. Just in the past 2 months, there have been stunning developments. Hezbollah's top leadership has been eliminated. We all remember the pager attack that disabled, injured, or killed thousands of Hezbollah operatives. And I think the ground war is going faster and better than expected. Many of the rocket launches have been targeted. In the last week or so, they've targeted Hezbollah's money supplies and banking system. That's been hit dramatically. Most of the border villages have been taken over. There are about 23 villages on the Lebanese side of the border. They were basically Hezbollah terror bases, and all of those have been taken over. So in the past couple of months, I think many people believe the operation against Hezbollah is going much faster, much better than anybody anticipated.
Let's talk about Iran for a moment. Are people anticipating Israel's response, the attack there?
Well, I think that's the next best thing, the next thing that people are anticipating. There is some, and we talked to a retired General Amir Avivi. He's with the Israel Security Defense Forum. He says that this campaign against Iran could take months. There's also the possibility that they may target Iran's leadership. And part of the reason could be because Iran tried to assassinate Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. They actually hit his bedroom with a drone last Sunday and Saturday. And so could they try and hit Khamenei? Israel strike and then Iran's retaliation, which they're go beyond the U.S. elections likely on November 5th. And this battle between Israel and Iran directly is going to have a profound impact on Israel and the region. And in terms of those elections, many people here, and including Amir Avivi was telling me, many here in Israel are looking for strong leadership to stand with Israel so they won't be alone against Iran.
Many feel like the hostages have faded from the headlines. What can you tell us about a possible hostage deal?
Well, right now, Israel's Mossad chief is on his way to Qatar with a new proposal. Qatar and Egypt have been the mediators during this whole past year in the negotiations. Comes after the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, and some believe it could make a deal more likely. Others point out it's very complicated. These hostages might be spread around throughout the Gaza Strip. Different groups might be holding them with different ideas of what to do with them. There's about 101 remaining. We're not sure of how many are still alive. So a desperate situation, and that's why many people are fervently praying for their release.
Indeed we are. What do you have for us today on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, updates on the war, both in the Gaza Strip and southern Lebanon. We have that interview with retired General Amir Avivi I was telling you about. Also, a story on the genius of Israel. And Israel's come up with an innovative way to reduce traffic congestion. We also have an interview with a man named Adam Gabelli. He's from the Canadian Assemblies of God. He's very well connected with what's going on inside Iran. Many believers are coming to faith through dreams or visions. And we also have a story on the Jerusalem prayer breakfast. It's going to be in Copenhagen in a few days. And finally, soldiers that are celebrating Simchat Torah. That was yesterday, the joy of the Torah. That's the feast they celebrated.
All right. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insights. Stay safe, and know we back here continue to pray for you and our team there on the ground in Israel. Well, even though Israel faces war on at least 7 fronts, Christians are coming to Jerusalem in a show of unity during the Biblical Feast of Tabernacles. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has this story.
Battling a fear of war and travel difficulty given airline cancellations, Christians still came to Israel to participate in this special celebration. They toured southern Israeli communities ravaged during the October 7th attack, heard from an IDF soldier, and on the 5th night of the feast, President Isaac Herzog welcomed them at the Tower of David Museum in Jerusalem.
In this time of so much grief, your gathering here says clearly and loudly, there is an answer to hatred. There is an answer to brutality. There is an answer to evil.
Despite the war, more than 500 Christians from some 50 nations have come to Israel to stand with the Jewish people and say, you're not alone.
It's the largest solidarity mission to Israel since the war began on October 7th last year, and it's a Christian solidarity mission.
David Parsons of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, tells CBN News the Christian message is clear.
We want to tell the people of Israel that all these charges of genocide against them, all the accusations and people trying to shame them or anyone who supports them, and we're going to stand here beside them, knowing they are fighting a just war in a moral way.
The ICEJ has held these annual celebrations since 1980, with thousands attending each year. Parsons, though, sees this year's gathering as unique.
This is a Gideon's army. When the Lord told Gideon, send the people home, he said, if they're afraid, go home. So we have a high caliber of people of faith who have come here to make this statement of support for Israel.
Delegations from 54 countries, including some with no formal diplomatic ties to Israel, carried their flags in the roll call of the nations. It also included an Iranian Christian. This year's largest delegation came from Germany. Gottfried Bühler, who works with ICEJ in Germany, says while they may have fear within the crowd, as Christians who trust in the Bible, they were bold enough to come.
Germany, we have our history with the Jewish people 80 years ago. And these people, they are taking responsibility, and they don't want that the history is coming back. So they are coming.
Vivian Myberg of the ICEJ South Africa says the anti-Israel stance of her government doesn't represent all the people. She says they want Israel to know that they have many friends in South Africa.
We are standing with you, and we will continue to pray for you, to pray for your hostages to come home, to pray for the protection of your soldiers in Gaza and the northern border. And we know that God is watching over you. We know that He is working out His plans and purposes in the nation of Israel today.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, the Tower of David Museum, Jerusalem's Old City.
Coming up, a new survey shows half of Americans will likely pray before casting a ballot, and more than 70% fear violence will follow this year's election. Find out more next. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. The 2024 presidential campaign has been one of the most divisive in recent history. A new survey shows more than half of Americans will likely pray before casting their ballots. Charlene Aaron reports on the crucial role that faith will play in guiding people at the ballot box.
According to a Religion News Service poll, 58% of Americans say religion is important in determining who they will support for president. Even more revealed that faith helps them deal with the stress and uncertainty surrounding the election.
Come on, right now, would you lift up your hands?
From 250,000 women praying on the National Mall in D.C. to online petitions like this, prayer is moving up in priority ahead of what's seen as one of our history's most divisive political seasons.
The most important part that we need to pray for right now for the election is for those that are up for election will fear God.
Dr. Corney Becker, Dean of Theology at Regent University, says while Scripture commands Christians to pray, he adds doing so in alignment with God's will is key.
We need to pray for God's will to be done. Jesus said it the best in the prayer that he taught us. May his kingdom come, may his will be done in our land as it is in heaven.
A sentiment supported by Walter Kim, president of the National Association of Evangelicals, who also urges believers to pray for opportunities to be a good witness.
You know, the politics will come and go. Elected officials will come and go. But our commitments as Christ followers means that there's a commitment to the good news of Jesus Christ and bearing witness to it that should endure past any election. And my deep concern is for the name of Jesus and the ways that Christians engage would be honoring to that name.
Kim points to the biblical example found in James chapter 1 as a way forward.
James' admonition here, I think, is so incredibly important. What is the posture that we're taking? Are we quick to listen? Are we slow to speak? Are we slow to become angry? Because the righteousness of God that ultimately we say we're after really requires a different type of posture.
News of 2 failed assassination attempts on former President Donald Trump has led voters across the country to worry about more violence. In one recent poll, 73% of likely voters expressed concern about politically motivated violence following the election. Only 27% had little to no concern.
One of the most dangerous things in the country right now is how volatile and divisive the language is, not only from politicians, but from ordinary citizens. And I think we as Christians should really pray. Jesus said the following, that a house divided against itself cannot stand. We need to pray for peaceful words, words that unite, words that bring healing, and indeed pray for God to unite this country again.
To help foster such unity, Washington's National Cathedral will host election-related services and prayers, focusing on peace, grace, and healing. We have a breach in our public life, a brokenness that requires us to take on the work of reconciliation, said the Very Reverend Randolph Marshall Hollerith, Dean of Washington National Cathedral. He added, Jesus' command is very clear. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. For Election Day, the nonpartisan group Faiths United to Save Democracy hopes to provide a calming presence by posting chaplains at polls in several battleground states.
If there's tension between people going into the voting place, they are giving training on de-escalation to try to help people realize everybody wants to vote. We all have that right. And they're trying to make people stay calm and not be accusing of one another or argumentative.
Meanwhile, no matter the outcome, some planning to be involved in the political process say they are focused on a bigger picture.
So ultimately, we're not looking for a perfect candidate because Jesus is king and he's the only person that is perfect. So for me, the Bible teaches us to pray for our leaders, for wisdom. And the Bible also teaches us that all authority is given by God. So I want the leader to win that most aligns with biblical truth.
Also praying that our own desires decrease and that the Lord's increase. And whoever he wants to lead us as a country, that he will rightfully put them in place, and that he will use them however he sees fit. And his will is much greater than our own.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, this Tar Heels linebacker is one of the most affordable in the country and expected to be an NFL first-round draft pick. See how a battle with anxiety and depression almost derailed his career. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. 35% of elite athletes struggle with their mental health. There's pressure from coaches and fans, and there's internal desire to be perfect. 2 years ago, North Carolina's Kaimon Rucker battled anxiety, depression, and injury. Today, the Tar Heels linebacker is a potential NFL first-round draft pick. Sports reporter Will Dawson brings us his story.
He's an All-American linebacker, ready for his final season at North Carolina. Kaimon Rucker is an explosive and fierce competitor who is primed to be a top choice in next year's NFL draft. His on-field prowess earned him a unique nickname.
Tim Cross, the defensive line coach, said of Kaimon Rucker, he said, he's a rolling ball of butcher knives. A rolling ball of butcher knives.
The announcers enjoyed it, and so, we shortened it down to the butcher, stuff like that, and, that's kind of how the whole persona came, just off of that one compliment.
By his sophomore season, Kaimon was rolling along, making an enormous impact for the Tar Heels and gaining national notoriety. However, in the spring, before his junior season, doctors determined Kaimon had a torn meniscus in his left knee and would need surgery.
The anxiousness of not being able to display what kind of player I am during the spring at the time, where they were going to place me on the field, the way that classes were going, I wasn't lifting as much as I wanted to. There was just so many different things. It was a whole whirlwind of emotions at that time. So I was feeling high levels of anxiety. I was depressed for a little bit at that time as well.
Kaimon's tough persona on the field made asking for help difficult.
I started to realize that I internalized a lot of things because of my mindset, because that I always wanted to push through things, because I was always determined. I've done that to an unhealthy amount, to the point where I just was a shaken up soda bottle at the time. I was just at any given moment, I could explode in terms of just I could cry, I could get upset for no reason. I was just in that mode where I was I couldn't figure out where I was.
Kaimon grew up in a Christian home, so he knew where to turn when things were tough.
I had to be real with myself and understand it. It was just I don't need to play football. I play football. It's just I'm separate from what my sport is. With the realization of that, I had to fall back on my faith, really fall back to what really gave me peace, what really gave me reconciliation of who I am as a person, and just understanding is if all things were to fail, if all things were to crash down, who can I definitely give my love to? And I was Jesus.
Fundamentals have been key to Kaimon's success on the field, and he realized he needed to brush up on some other necessities.
I had to really get back into the Word. I had to get back to start praying. I had to get back to these things, whether, even though these are small things, that even as Christians often look over. Those were things and stuff like I had to get back to doing, because these little things is what caused me to have big jumps in my life, to have big jumps in my success, in my accolades and things of that nature.
I saw a video of you being baptized on social media. How special was that moment?
That was a very special moment. That was the first time I've ever gotten baptized. I feel like this was kind of like my first jump into really professing my faith because I wanted to. That was a moment that I will never forget. The baptism wasn't just for me. This was for other people to realize, like, it's okay to profess your faith. And being a D1 football player, there's going to be a whole bunch of things that's happening around you, but that doesn't mean that you still can't profess your faith. That doesn't mean you can't be true to who you are. That doesn't mean you can't be you. And so, like, I wanted to just really set that tone for the rest of the team.
As he begins his final season at North Carolina, Kaimon knows that in a few short months, if all goes well, he will hear his name called in the NFL draft. Of all the highs and lows he's experienced, Kaimon has a simple message for others.
I want to fulfill whatever purpose God has for me, whether that is in the NFL, whether it's not, whether that's in somewhere else. But we sometimes as Christians, we have to be real with ourselves. You have to be real with God. God said, come as you are. You don't ever get clean to get into the shower. You know what I'm saying? You got to get into the shower dirty in order to clean yourself. That's how you got to come to God. So it's just like, that's when you got to put your faith in him. And that's why the faith means the world to me, because I can go to God however way I am.
Amen. Stay with us. Your Friday Faithful is coming up next. It's time now for your Friday Faithful. I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap another week together. Happiness comes and goes, but joy remains if you allow it. Joy is an inside job. Remember, the joy of the Lord is our strength. Hold fast to it. With that word, make this a fabulous Friday and be sure to have yourself a wonderful weekend. Do that on purpose and with purpose. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, which is formerly known as Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right back here come Monday. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you in just a bit. Thank you for watching. God bless.